The reluctant healers. The artificial lights of Nexus 7 dimmed to simulate dusk as Lieutenant Josephine Watts finished organizing the last cabinet in the medical bay. 3 years into her 5-year assignment aboard this interspecies space station, and she still couldn't get used to the perpetual sterility of everything. At least back on Earth, military hospitals had windows, natural light that shifted with passing clouds, the occasional insect that found its way inside despite protocols. Lieutenant Watts, your presence is requested in Laboratory Section 12B. The station's AI voice cut through her thoughts with mechanical precision. Josephine sighed, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. Who's requesting me? Dr. Drexthar, chief xenobiologist. That was unusual. The Arcturian scientist rarely interacted with human medical staff. His 8-limbed species preferred to work in isolation, their compound eyes and sensitive antennae finding human movements distracting. Whatever he needed must be important. Laboratory 12B was located in the station's research wing, a section of Nexus 7 that Josephine seldom visited. The doors parted with a soft hiss, revealing a dimly lit room filled with equipment she didn't recognize. The air was thick with the scent of mineral salts and something else, something bitter. You have arrived, good. The clicking, multi-toned voice of Dr. Drexthar came from behind a large holographic display. The Arcturian moved into view, his exoskeleton gleaming under the blue lights. I require your assistance with something of great urgency, Lieutenant. Just Josephine is fine, she said, approaching cautiously. What can I do for you? Drexthar's mandibles twitched, an Arcturian gesture of anxiety. I have discovered something troubling in the biological samples brought back from the Vega system, something that affects humans exclusively. He gestured with 3 of his upper limbs toward a sealed containment unit. Inside, a cellular structure pulsed with an unnatural rhythm, its edges blurring as it attempted to reshape itself. What am I looking at? Josephine asked, leaning closer to the transparent barrier. A pathogen unlike any I have encountered before. It appears engineered, designed to target human genetic markers. Drexthar's compound eyes reflected the light from the containment field. It binds to human DNA and rewrites it, causing rapid organ failure. In my simulations, infection to death occurs within 72 hours. Josephine felt her stomach tighten. Why hasn't this been reported to Earth Command? Because, Drexthar said, his voice lowering, the pathogen bears markers of artificial enhancement consistent with Vol technology. The Vol, a relatively new species to join the Galactic Concord, they had been peaceful if somewhat secretive. The suggestion that they would develop biological weapons targeting humans specifically was not just troubling, it was an act of war. I need a sample of your blood, Drexthar continued. I have tested the pathogen against samples from 17 human crew members. All showed complete vulnerability, but your medical records indicate a genetic anomaly in your immune system. Josephine nodded slowly. She had been born with a rare condition, one that had nearly killed her as a child but had left her with an unusually adaptive immune response. It was why she'd become a medic in the first place. You think I might be resistant? She asked. I believe you may be the key to understanding how to fight this, Drexthar replied. The next 12 hours passed in a blur of tests and simulations. Josephine's blood did indeed show resistance to the pathogen, not complete immunity, but enough that her cells fought back, slowing the pathogen's progress significantly. While they worked, a ship arrived at Nexus 7. The station's commander, Jackson Reed, called an emergency meeting of all senior staff. A delegation from the Vol Collective had requested permission to board. They claimed to be on a diplomatic mission, Reed explained in the briefing room, his weathered face grim. But our long-range scans show their vessel is armed well beyond what's permitted for diplomatic craft. We should deny them access, Security Chief Ortega said firmly, at least until we know more about this pathogen. Reed shook his head. Denied access, they might simply attack. Better to have them where we can watch them. Josephine spoke up. Commander, Dr. Drexthar and I have discovered something that suggests. I'm aware of the doctor's concerns, Lieutenant, Reed interrupted. But we need more than speculation before we make accusations against a conquered member species. The Vol delegation boarded 3 hours later. Their leader, Ambassador Krelvek, was tall and imposing, with metallic scales covering his humanoid form and eyes that seemed to emit their own pale light. His four-fingered hands remained clasped before him as he spoke, his voice a smooth, almost hypnotic rumble. "We come seeking information about certain, concerning developments," Krelvac said during the formal reception. "Our scientists have detected unusual research activities aboard this station, research that violates several conquered treaties." Commander Reed maintained his diplomatic composure. "I assure you, Ambassador, all research conducted aboard Nexus 7 follows conquered protocols." Perhaps Krelvac's gaze swept the room, lingering momentarily on Josephine. "But we would like to inspect your facilities nonetheless." Later, as Josephine returned to Drexthar's laboratory, she found the Arcturian frantically downloading data. "They know," he chittered, his movements jerky with stress. "The Vol know we've discovered their weapon." "How could they?" "They have technology beyond what they've shared with the Conquered," Drexthar said. "They detected my analysis of the pathogen. They're here to silence us." A harsh alarm suddenly blared throughout the station. The emergency lights bathed the laboratory in pulsing red. "Security breach in Sector 3, the AI announced. "All personnel implement lockdown procedures." Sector 3, where the main computer core was housed, Josephine's blood ran cold. "They're accessing our research data," Drexthar said, his voice rising in pitch. "We must secure our samples." They worked quickly, copying their findings to isolated data crystals while transferring the biological samples to portable containment units. When the laboratory door slid open, Josephine expected to see security personnel, not the towering form of Ambassador Krelvac flanked by 2 Vol guards. "A simple medic and an Arcturian scientist," Krelvac said, his tone almost amused. "This is the great threat to our plans. How disappointing." "Your plans involve biological warfare against humans," Josephine said, stepping forward. "That's a direct violation of the Conquered Charter." Krelvac's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile. "The Conquered, a collection of weak species playing at cooperation. Humans are particularly troublesome, so aggressive, so quick to expand. Our pathogen will solve that problem quite efficiently." "You won't succeed," Josephine said, her hand sliding to the medical scanner at her belt. "We've already developed countermeasures." The Vol ambassador laughed, a chilling sound like metal scraping against stone. "You, a simple medic, you expect me to believe you've countered our most advanced bioweapon?" "You should," Drexthar interjected, his mandibles clicking rapidly. "Lieutenant Watts possesses a genetic anomaly that makes her resistant to your pathogen. We've isolated the mechanism." Krelvac's expression darkened. With a motion too fast to track, he drew a weapon and fired. The energy pulse struck Drexthar squarely in the thorax, sending the Arcturian crashing into a bank of equipment. "No," Josephine cried, lunging forward only to be restrained by one of the Vol guards. "Secure the laboratory," Krelvac ordered. "Destroy all samples and data. The human comes with us." As she was dragged away, Josephine caught a glimpse of Drexthar's motionless form amid the sparking equipment. She couldn't tell if he was still alive. The Vol had miscalculated, however. In dismissing her as just a medic, they had revealed their ignorance of human resilience. And in taking her prisoner rather than killing her outright, they had made their gravest error. Because Josephine Watts wasn't just any medic. She was now the carrier of humanity's only hope for survival, and she had no intention of going quietly. "Humanity's shield." The Vol transport vessel hummed with a low, unsettling frequency as Josephine tested the restraints binding her to the medical examination table. 3 days had passed since her capture, 3 days of tests, sample collections, and thinly veiled threats from Ambassador Krelvac and his scientific team. "Your genetic anomaly is fascinating," Dr. Mevra, the Vol chief biologist, said as she entered the chamber. Unlike Krelvac's metallic scales, hers were a deep indigo, marking her as part of the scientific caste. "A mutation that should have killed you as a child has instead made you uniquely resistant to our pathogen." Josephine remained silent, watching the alien's movements carefully. She had learned more from observation than interrogation. The Vol were methodical, recording every test with meticulous precision. Their arrogance was their weakness. They spoke freely around her, assuming that a simple human medic could never understand their advanced biological science. "They were wrong." "The first wave of deployment has begun," Mevra continued, adjusting the settings on a scanner. 3 human colony worlds have been seeded with the pathogen. The results are most satisfactory." Josephine's heart sank. Millions of lives were at risk. "Why?" she finally asked. Why target humans specifically? Mevra's head tilted, compound eyes reflecting the harsh laboratory lights. Necessity. Your species spreads too rapidly, adapts too quickly. In 2 centuries, you've colonized more worlds than the Arcturians have in 2 millennia. The galactic conquered may accept such aggression, but the Vol Collective recognizes the threat. So this is preventative genocide. Josephine's voice remained steady despite her rising anger. You're making a mistake. Humanity won't fall so easily. Bold words from a captive, Mevra replied. But statistically speaking, your species will be functionally extinct within 1 standard month. A sudden tremor shook the vessel, causing Mevra to stumble. Emergency klaxons blared to life. Perimeter breach in Hangar Bay 3, announced an automated voice. Unknown vessel has forced docking procedures. The Vol scientist hurried from the room, the door sealing behind her. Josephine strained against her restraints with renewed vigor. Whatever was happening presented her only chance for escape. The lights flickered, then dimmed to emergency settings. The lock on her restraints disengaged with a soft click. Confused, Josephine freed herself and moved cautiously to the door. It slid open at her approach. Standing in the corridor was a familiar 8-limbed figure. Dr. Drexthar, Josephine gasped. How? Explanations later, the Arcturian chittered, his exoskeleton bearing visible scorch marks from his injury. We must hurry. Commander Reed has launched a rescue operation, but the window of opportunity is narrow. They moved through the Vol vessel's corridors, avoiding patrols with Drexthar's guidance. The Arcturian had memorized the ship's layout from the station's scans, his perfect recall proving invaluable. The Vol have launched their pathogen against 3 human colonies, Josephine whispered as they took cover in a maintenance alcove. I know, Drexthar replied. Earth Command received my transmission after the Vol left Nexus 7. Quarantine protocols have been implemented, but casualties are already in the thousands. We need to get my blood samples back to the station, Josephine said. The antibodies in my system are already being synthesized, Drexthar finished. I managed to secure 1 vial before the Vol destroyed our laboratory. The station's medical team has been working on it since your capture. A squad of Vol security personnel rounded the corner ahead, weapons raised. Before they could fire, the corridor behind them filled with armored figures, human marines, their tactical gear marked with Nexus 7 insignia. Lieutenant Watts, Captain Morgan Hayes, head of the station's Marine detachment, called out as the brief firefight ended. Secure the package, people, move. With Marines forming a protective cordon, Josephine and Drexthar made their way to the hangar bay where a human assault shuttle waited, engines running. As they approached the shuttle, a massive explosion rocked the Vol vessel. They're scuttling critical systems, Hayes shouted over the noise. We have maybe 5 minutes before this whole ship goes critical. As they rushed aboard the shuttle, Josephine caught sight of a familiar figure watching from an observation gallery above the hangar. Ambassador Krelvac, his metallic scales reflecting the emergency lights, his expression a mask of cold fury. The shuttle disengaged from the Vol vessel with seconds to spare. Through the viewport, Josephine watched as secondary explosions rippled across the alien ship's hull. Did everyone make it out? She asked Hayes as the shuttle accelerated toward Nexus 7. Most of our team, Hayes replied grimly. Lost 2 Marines in the initial breach. Worth it to recover our chief medical officer. Josephine raised an eyebrow. I'm not the chief medical officer. Hayes smiled. You are now. Dr. Petrova was among the first victims when the Vol released a sample of their pathogen on the station during their escape. Commander Reed issued a field promotion. Back at Nexus 7, Josephine found the station in crisis mode. The medical bay had been converted into a quarantine zone, with dozens of afflicted crew members fighting for their lives. Dr. Helena Zhang, the station's head researcher, greeted Josephine with visible relief. The synthesized antibodies are working, but not quickly enough, Zhang explained, leading Josephine through the ward. We need to boost their efficacy if we're going to save the colonists. For the next 48 hours, Josephine worked without rest, applying her practical medical knowledge to the theoretical work begun by Drexthar and Zhang. Her unique perspective, combining field medicine with a deep understanding of human physiology, provided the breakthrough they needed. It's the delivery mechanism, she explained to Commander Reed during a briefing. The antibodies need to be aerosol dispersed at the cellular level, not injected. I've modified standard terraforming drones to deliver the cure to affected populations. Reed nodded, his expression grave. We've received word that the Vol Collective has launched their main fleet. They're targeting Earth directly now. If your cure works, they'll have lost their advantage of surprise. It will work, Josephine said with quiet confidence, but we need to deploy immediately. The modified cure was dispatched to the affected colonies via emergency transport vessels. Meanwhile, Nexus 7 prepared for possible Vol retaliation. They didn't have to wait long. 3 Vol battlecruisers emerged from faster-than-light travel near the station, their weapons systems online and targeting. The station's shields activated just as the first salvo struck. They're focusing fire on the medical bay and research sections, the tactical officer reported as the station shuddered under the assault. They're trying to stop the cure from spreading, Josephine realized. They know they've lost their first advantage. Commander Reed turned to her. Can we use your pathogen resistance against them somehow, turn their weapon back on its creators? Josephine shook her head. No, their physiology is too different, but an idea formed, something so simple she almost dismissed it. Their environmental systems, the Vol, are cold-blooded like reptiles. Their ships maintain higher temperatures than ours. What if we targeted their life support? Reed finished, understanding immediately. Freeze them out. A desperate plan took shape. While the station's defenses held the Vol ships at bay, Josephine and Drexthar modified a set of medical nanites to target the environmental regulators of Vol technology. The station's remaining assault shuttles were dispatched, each carrying a payload of the modified nanites. This isn't a weapon, Josephine insisted as she programmed the final sequence. It won't harm them directly, it will simply force them to retreat or face hypothermia. A humane solution, Drexthar observed, his mandibles clicking in what Josephine had come to recognize as approval. Perhaps that is what the Vol failed to understand about humans, your capacity for mercy even in the face of extinction. The plan worked beyond their expectations. As the nanites infiltrated the Vol ship systems, their environmental controls failed spectacularly. Within hours, the Vol fleet was in retreat, their cold-blooded crews unable to function in the rapidly cooling vessels. But the victory came at a cost. Nexus 7 had sustained critical damage, and reports from Earth indicated that the Vol main fleet was still on approach, despite their initial setback. In the damaged command center, an emergency transmission broke through the static. Ambassador Krelvac, his scales dull with the onset of cold-induced torpor. This is not over, humans, he hissed. You have won a single battle through trickery. The collective will not be so easily defeated. This isn't trickery, Josephine replied, stepping forward. This is adaptation, the very quality and humanity that you fear. We don't want war with the Vol, but we will defend ourselves. Your species is a disease spreading across the galaxy, Krelvac snarled. No, Josephine countered. We're healers. Even now, our ships are delivering the cure to your pathogen. We could have developed a weapon instead, targeted your biology as you targeted ours, but that's not who we are. The transmission ended abruptly, but the message had been delivered. 6 hours later, Earth Command reported that the Vol main fleet had changed course, withdrawing to their territory. In the days that followed, as Nexus 7 underwent repairs and the affected colonies began to recover, Josephine found herself standing before the station's observation window, gazing at the stars. Drexthar joined her, his movements still stiff from his injuries. The Galactic Concord has censured the Vol Collective, the Arcturian informed her. Their leadership is being replaced and reparations will be made. Will it be enough, Josephine asked. They still see us as a threat. Perhaps, Drexthar replied thoughtfully, that perspective is changing. Your response to their aggression has made an impression on many species within the Concord. Not destruction but healing. Not revenge but protection. Josephine smiled faintly, just a simple medic doing her job. No, Drexthar corrected, his compound eyes reflecting the distant stars. A symbol of what humanity truly offers to the galaxy. Not conquest but care, not domination but cooperation. In saving your species, Lieutenant Watts, you may have shown the galaxy what it means to be truly human. As Nexus 7 continued its slow rotation, Josephine considered the irony. The Vol had seen humanity as a disease to be eradicated, never understanding that in targeting their capacity to heal, they had awakened humanity's true strength. Not the power to destroy, but the determination to save lives, even those who had sought their extinction. In the end, a simple medic had indeed become humanity's last hope, and its most powerful ambassador.